One had been waiting at Sigma Station for 3 hours. His client was late again. He sat in a corner watching the crowd move through the marketplace. Aliens of every shape and size walked past his table. Some had 4 arms, some had scales, and some glowed in the dark. After 5 years working on space stations, one still found it amazing. He checked his device again. Still no message from the client. He sighed and ordered another coffee. The human colony of New had sent him here to sell medical scanners. His small company needed this deal badly, but right now, all he could do was wait. That was when he saw her. She stood near the fountain in the center of the marketplace, tall and slim, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station lights. Her head turned left and right, but her movements seemed wrong, lost. She held a small device in her hand, tapping it frantically. The device made clicking sounds. One watched as she took a step forward and bumped into a cargo crate. She stumbled backward, her hands reaching out to find balance. The clicking device fell from her grip and shattered on the floor. The alien girl dropped to her knees, her hands sweeping across the ground. She was trying to find the pieces. People walked around her. Nobody stopped to help. One stood up. His mother had always told him to mind his own business on alien stations. Different cultures, different rules. But watching someone struggle while others ignored them felt wrong. He walked over and knelt beside her. "Do you need help?" he asked. She jerked away from his voice, startled. Her face turned toward him, but her eyes did not focus. They were cloudy like frosted glass. She was blind. "I am fine," she said. Her voice came through a translator device on her collar. The words were flat, mechanical. "My guidance tool is broken. I will manage." "Let me help you stand," one said gently. He reached for her arm. She pulled back. "Please do not touch, it is not proper." One stopped. He looked at the broken pieces on the floor. The device was completely destroyed. "Your guidance tool cannot be fixed. Those circuits are fried." The alien girl's shoulders sagged. Her hands trembled slightly. "Then I am stuck here." "Where were you going?" She hesitated. Her fingers twisted together, a gesture that seemed nervous even across species. "The transport hub, Bay 14. I have a ship to catch." One looked around the marketplace. Bay 14 was on the other side of the station, through 3 different levels. Without guidance, she would never make it alone. "I can guide you," he offered. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, my name is One. I am an engineer." "I am called she paused. "Why would you help me? You do not know me." One smiled, though she could not see it. "Because you need help, that is enough reason." A stood silent for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "I accept, but you must not touch me. I will hold your sleeve. You will describe what is ahead." "Agreed," one said. They moved through the marketplace slowly. One described everything. Steps ahead, turn left, people crossing from the right. I held his sleeve lightly, following his movements. She was graceful despite her blindness, her steps careful and measured. As they walked, one grew curious. "I have never met a before. Your whole species is blind." "Yes," I said. "It is the way of the eternal listeners. We were made to experience the universe through sound and touch, not sight." "Made by whom?" "Our gods. The eternal listeners created us to hear the music of the cosmos. To see would be to reject their gift." She said it like a prayer, words she had spoken many times before. One thought about that. He was a scientist. He did not think much about gods, but he respected that others did. "Where are you traveling?" "To the sacred archives. It is a pilgrimage. My family sent prayers and offerings on a data crystal. I must deliver it to the priests." There was pride in her voice, but also something else. Sadness, maybe. They reached the transport hub. One checked the bay number. "Bay 14 is this way." As they walked, one's mind wandered. He was an engineer who specialized in neural prosthetics. He helped people who had lost senses or limbs. His scanners could map the brain and nervous system in detail. A thought occurred to him. Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Have your people ever tried to create vision through technology?" A stopped walking. Her grip on his sleeve tightened. "No, it would be forbidden. To seek sight is to reject the eternal listeners. It is the greatest sin." "I understand," one said quickly. "I did not mean offense." They continued walking, but it was quieter now. When they reached Bay 14, she released his sleeve and bowed slightly. "Thank you," one the engineer. "You have shown kindness to a stranger. May your path be blessed." "Wait," one said. "Can I ask one more thing? It is for science, not to offend your faith." A tilted her head. "Ask." "Would you let me scan you? I have a medical scanner. It maps neural pathways. I have never scanned a before. It would help my research." He felt awkward asking, but his curiosity was too strong. I was silent. "Then, will it hurt?" "No, it is just light. You will not feel anything." "Then I agree. You helped me. I can help your research." One pulled out his medical scanner. It was a small device, no bigger than his hand. He activated it and pointed it at A's head. The screen lit up with data, neural maps, electrical pathways, brain structure. And then he saw something impossible. "This cannot be right," he whispered. "What is wrong?" I asked, concerned. One stared at the screen. His hands started shaking. "You have optical pathways in your brain. They are dormant, but they are there." "I do not understand." "Your species can see, or could see. The neural structure is present. Something is blocking it. A genetic mutation, maybe. But it is not natural evolution. Your blindness is not how you were made. It is something that happened to your people." I stepped backward. "No, that is not true. The eternal listeners made us without sight. It is our sacred form." "I am looking at your brain structure right now," one said, his voice rising with excitement. I could fix this. I could build a device that bypasses the blockage. You could see." "Stop," said. Her voice was sharp. "Do not speak of this. It is heresy." But one's mind was already racing. This was incredible. A whole species that did not know they could be different. Think about it. You could see your family, see the universe, see colors and stars and faces. "I must go," I said. She turned toward the ship entrance, using her hands to find the wall. "Wait," one called. "I am sorry, I should not have pushed, but if you ever want to try, I can build the device. It would take a few days. I have the tools here on the station." I stood at the entrance. She did not turn around. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because you deserve the choice," one said simply. "Your gods may have made you one way, but maybe they also gave you the ability to change. Maybe that is a gift too." For a long time it did not move. Station announcements echoed through the hub. Ships powered up and down. Finally she spoke. "If I did this, if I agreed, could it be a secret? My people cannot know, the priests cannot know." One's heart beat faster. "Yes, just between us. And it will not hurt. I promise." I turned around slowly. "I want to see my mother's face. I have touched it many times, but I want to see it." One smiled. "Then let me help you." Neither of them knew that this moment would change everything. Neither of them understood what they were about to start. They were just two people making a choice. Sometimes that is how wars begin. One's workshop was a mess. Tools covered every surface. Wires hung from the ceiling. Half-built machines sat in corners, blinking with small lights. But it was his space, and he knew where everything was. I sat very still in the center chair. She had come back 3 times now. Each time, one worked on the visor. Each time, she asked him questions about sight that he struggled to answer. How do you explain color to someone who has never seen? How do you describe the difference between near and far? "Tell me again what blue looks like," I said. One paused his work on the visor circuits. He had been trying to answer this for 2 days. "Blue is calm, like cool water. It is the color of deep things, oceans, sky. sadness sometimes. We have a word, I said quietly. It means the feeling of deep water against skin, cold and endless. Is that blue? Yes, one said, smiling. That is exactly blue. The workshop door opened. Wu walked in carrying food containers. She was one's business partner and closest friend. She stopped when she saw in the chair. You are still doing this, Wu said. She did not sound happy. Almost finished, one replied, not looking up from his work. Wu set down the food and crossed her arms. One, we need to talk outside. One sighed, he put down his tools. I will return soon, do not touch anything. I cannot see anything to touch, said with a small smile. Outside the workshop, Wu grabbed one's arm. Her face was serious. Do you understand what you are doing? Helping someone, one said. No, you are interfering with an alien religion. I researched their entire culture is built around being blind. Their temples, their laws, their gods, everything. So you are not just giving one girl sight. You are challenging everything her people believe. Wu's voice rose. What happens when others learn about this? What happens when their priests find out? One looked through the workshop window at her. She sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. She wants this. It is her choice. Is it? Or did you convince her to want it? Wu shook her head. You always do this. You see a problem and fix it without thinking about consequences. I think about consequences. No, you do not. You think about solutions. Wu softened her voice. I know your heart is good, but good intentions do not always lead to good outcomes. Please just think about this more. One was quiet for a moment. Then he said, the visor is almost done. I am not stopping now. Wu looked disappointed but not surprised. Then I hope you are right about this. She walked away, leaving the food containers behind. One returned to the workshop. He worked through the night. By morning, the visor was complete. It was beautiful in its simplicity. A curved piece of metal that fit over A's eyes. Small sensors lined the inside. Thin wires connected to a processor behind the ear. The whole device weighed almost nothing. It is ready, one said. A stood up from the chair, her hands shook. I am frightened. That is normal. We can wait if you want. No, if I wait I will lose courage. She sat back down. What will happen? I will place the visor on your face. It will feel cold at first. Then I will activate it. The sensors will send signals to your optical nerves. Your brain will start to process visual information. It might be overwhelming at first. Will it hurt? No, but it will be strange, very strange. I took a deep breath. I am ready. One picked up the visor with careful hands. He had built many devices in his life. None of them felt as important as this one. He stepped close to her and gently placed the visor over her eyes. It fit perfectly against her blue skin. I feel it, she whispered. I am activating it now, one said. He pressed the button on the side. For 3 seconds nothing happened, then a gasp. Her hands flew up to the visor. Her whole body went rigid. Strange sounds came from her throat, not words, just sounds of shock and confusion. Are you okay? One asked, worried. There is. What is? She could not form sentences. Her head turned left and right, movements quick and jerky. Everything is. There is so much. I cannot. One knelt in front of her. Breathe, just breathe. Your brain is learning to process new information. It will become clearer. A's breathing slowed. Her movements became less frantic. She stared straight ahead at one's face. Tears rolled down her blue cheeks. I see you, she whispered. I see your face. One felt his own eyes getting wet. Yes, you see me. You are, she reached out slowly, her hand touching his face. You are the same as when I touch you, but also different. You have colors, brown hair, darker skin than mine, and your eyes. She leaned closer, staring into his eyes. They have so much in them. How do you hold so much in such small space? One laughed, wiping his eyes. I do not know, I never thought about it. A stood up carefully. She looked around the workshop, at the tools, the machines, the lights. She turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. Then she stopped at a mirror on the wall. She walked to it like she was in a dream. When she saw her reflection, she froze. Is that me? She asked in a tiny voice. Yes. A raised her hand. Her reflection raised its hand. She touched her face. Her reflection touched its face. She stared at herself for a long time without speaking. I never knew, she finally said. I never knew what I looked like. Over the next hour, one showed her everything. Colors, depth, shadow, and light. He took her to the workshop window and showed her the stars outside, pressed her face against the glass and cried at the beauty of it. But then the questions started. Why did the eternal listeners make us blind if we could see? I asked. One did not have an answer. How many of my people lived and died never knowing this was possible? One remained silent. What else have we been wrong about? Before one could respond, the workshop door burst open. A tall male stood in the doorway. He wore long robes covered in silver symbols. His clouded eyes swept the room without seeing, but his head turned directly toward us. I can hear the device, he said in a cold voice. The blasphemous machine that corrupts the natural form. I grabbed one's arm. Elder A, she whispered. He is my pilgrimage monitor. The elder stepped into the workshop. His movements were confident despite his blindness. Years of practice. A daughter of the faithful, I have tracked you for 3 days. You missed your pilgrimage checks. I feared you were lost. He paused. Now I see you have been corrupted instead. I have not been corrupted, I said. I have been given a gift. A gift, the elder's voice rose. That human has placed a cursed device upon your sacred form. He has made you reject the wisdom of the eternal listeners. The eternal listeners made us with the ability to see, I said. Her voice was steady now. This human proved it. Our blindness is not divine. It is a mutation. Elder A's face twisted with rage. Heresy, you speak heresy. It is truth, I shot back. Remove that device immediately, the elder commanded. Return to the proper path. There is still time to seek forgiveness. No. The single word hung in the air. Elder A stood very still. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet and dangerous. Then you have chosen damnation, and this human has chosen to be an enemy of our people. One stepped forward. I meant no offense to your faith. I only wanted to help. Help, the elder laughed bitterly. You have destroyed her soul, and now you will face consequences. He pulled out a communication device and spoke rapidly in the language. He is calling temple enforcers, I said urgently. We must leave now. Where will we go? One asked. Anywhere but here. They ran from the workshop, leaving everything behind. One grabbed only his scanner and some tools. They sprinted through the station corridors while alarms started blaring behind them. Security had been alerted. There, appointed at a docking bay, she was using her new sight to navigate. That human cargo ship, maybe they will help us. They pounded on the ship's hull. After a moment, the door opened. A human captain looked down at them with confusion. What is going on? Please, one gasped. We need to leave the station right now. I will pay anything. The captain looked at the approaching security forces, then back at one and get in, but you owe me an explanation. The ship launched minutes later. As they pulled away from Sigma, one looked back at the station. Wu was still there. His equipment was still there. His client was still waiting. His whole life was back there. What have I done? He whispered. Put her hand on his shoulder. She could see his expression now. She could see the fear and regret in his eyes. You gave me choice, she said. Whatever comes next, that was worth it. But as Elder A's message spread across communication networks, as priests gathered to discuss this violation of their sacred laws, As the news began to reach both human and alien worlds, one thing became clear. This was only the beginning. The news spread like fire. Within a week, every major network was talking about it. Human journalists called it the gift of sight. Priests called it the great corruption. Everyone had an opinion. Nobody agreed. One watched the news feeds from a small apartment on New Colony. The human cargo captain had brought them here. It was supposed to be safe, but now one was not sure anywhere was safe. "Look at this one," I said. She was getting better at using her eyes. She could read now, though slowly. She pointed at a screen showing a human news anchor. The anchor was a woman named Hay. She spoke with passion. "A human engineer has freed an alien woman from the chains of religious oppression. For thousands of years, the people have lived in darkness, told by their priests that blindness was holy. Now, thanks to human innovation, that lie has been exposed." "She makes it sound like I saved you from prison," one said quietly. "Did you not?" I asked. One did not answer. He switched to a news channel. The translation scrolled across the bottom of the screen. A priest stood before a massive temple. "The human called one has committed a crime against our people. He has violated the sacred form of a pilgrim. He has encouraged heresy and blasphemy. The High Council is meeting to discuss appropriate responses. All faithful must reject this corruption." Someone knocked on the door. Both one and a jumped. One opened it carefully. An older human man stood in the hallway. He had gray hair and wore simple clothes. His eyes were sharp and intelligent. "You are one." "Who are you?" "My name is Du. I am an anthropologist. I have studied the for 30 years. May I come in?" One let him enter. Du looked at her in her visor. He did not seem surprised or excited. He seemed sad. "You do not understand what you have done," Du said to one. "Everyone keeps saying that," one replied, frustrated. "I helped someone, that is all." "No, you have planted a bomb in the center of an entire civilization." Du sat down without being invited. "They built everything around their blindness. Their architecture has no visual elements, only sound and touch. Their art is based on vibration and texture. Their entire philosophy comes from experiencing the universe without sight. You have not just given one person vision. You have questioned their entire way of life." "Their way of life was based on a lie," I said. "We were told our blindness was divine. It was just a mutation." Du looked at her with sympathy. "Does that make your people's achievements less beautiful? Does that make your art less meaningful? Does that make your philosophy less wise?" I opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer. "I have seen this before," Du continued. "When humans make contact with less advanced species, we always think we are helping. We bring medicine, technology, new ideas. And sometimes we destroy more than we save, because we assume our way is better. We assume everyone wants what we have." "So I should have left her blind?" one asked angrily. "I do not know," Du admitted. "That is the tragedy. You made a choice with kindness in your heart, but kindness is not wisdom, and now we must face the consequences." Those consequences arrived faster than anyone expected. On the young people started protesting in the temple districts. They had seen A's broadcasts. She had been sending messages, showing what sight was like, explaining what the visor could do. Her sister Ha was among the protesters. "We deserve the truth," the young shouted. Their voices echoed through the sacred halls. "If we can see, we should have the choice." The temple guards pushed them back, but more protesters came. Every day the crowds grew larger. The High Council met in emergency session, spoke to the gathered elders. "This human technology is a poison. If we allow it to spread, our people will lose their way. They will abandon the temples. They will forget the wisdom of the eternal listeners. We must act decisively." But not all the elders agreed. Some younger priests argued for discussion, for understanding, for allowing citizens to make their own choices. The council split. Arguments became fights. Ancient friendships shattered over this single issue. Meanwhile, human colonies held their own debates. Some humans supported one. He gave an alien the gift of sight, they said. He should be celebrated. Others were angry. He interfered with alien culture, they argued. He had no right. Ambassador found himself in the middle of a nightmare. His job was to maintain peace between humans and alien species. Now he had to prevent a war. He called one on a secure line. You need to destroy the Visor technology. Release a statement saying it was a mistake. Maybe we can calm this situation down. No, one said. You do not understand the politics here, insisted. The High Council is threatening to cut all trade with human colonies. They have military ships. This could escalate. I understand perfectly, one said, but I will not pretend I was wrong to help someone. Sighed heavily. Then you have chosen to let this get worse. It did get worse. A young named Al traveled to a neutral space station. She had obtained a visor through underground channels. Copies of one's design had spread across the network. She wanted to see. Al put on the visor in a public plaza. She activated it. For the first time in her life, she saw the universe around her. She cried with joy. Then a group of religious zealots found her. They saw the visor. They called her a traitor, a heretic, a corruption of the natural order. They attacked her. By the time station security arrived, 3 people were dead. Al, 2 of the zealots, others were injured. The plaza was covered in blood. The images spread across every news network, human and alien alike. This is your fault, Wu shouted when she finally reached one by communication link. She had tears in her eyes. 3 people are dead because of what you created. I did not kill them, one said, but his voice was hollow. The zealots killed them. You created the reason, Wu was almost screaming now. I warned you. I told you there would be consequences, but you did not listen. You never listen. She cut the connection. One sat in the darkness of the apartment. A stood beside him. She could see his face now. She could see the pain and guilt written there. Maybe I was wrong, one whispered. Maybe I should have left you alone. No, said firmly. Do not say that. People are dying. People were already suffering. My people lived their entire lives never knowing what was possible. Is that not a kind of death? To die without ever seeing? But you still had good lives, one said. You had culture and art and meaning. I took that certainty away. What if do is right? What if I destroyed more than I saved? A knelt in front of him, she took his hands. I have seen my mother's face now. I have seen the stars. I have seen colors that my language does not have words for. And yes, there is pain in knowing what we missed. But there is also joy. Can that be wrong? I do not know any more, one admitted. More incidents followed. Human protesters blocked an embassy demanding they join the modern age. Counter-protesters formed walls around temples, chanting prayers. Fights broke out. More people were injured. The High Council issued an ultimatum. Surrender one and all visor technology within 30 days or face economic sanctions, then military action. Human governments scrambled to respond. Some wanted to give one up. One man is not worth a war, they argued. Others refused. We do not surrender our citizens to alien religious courts, they countered. Du visited one again. There might be a way to stop this, if you publicly apologize, if you acknowledge the harm caused, if you work with the to create protocols for cultural preservation. Will that save the who want to see? One asked. Will that give them choice? No, Du admitted. It will maintain the status, keep the peace, prevent war. Then I cannot do it. Even if war comes. One looked at A. She was watching the news, her new eyes scanning the terrible images. Young protesting, religious leaders condemning, human ships moving into position near space. Even then, one said quietly. Because he still believed, despite everything, that he had done the right thing, that giving someone the ability to choose was worth any cost. But as military ships gathered on both sides, as tensions rose to breaking points, as families across the galaxy divided over this single issue, a question remained. Was one person's freedom worth a civilization's war? One did not know the answer, but he was about to find out. The first shots were fired at the border between human and space. Nobody could agree on who fired first. Human reports said a temple ship attacked a civilian transport. Reports said human vessels violated sacred space. The truth got lost in the chaos that followed. Within hours, both sides mobilized their fleets. Captain Wu commanded the human destroyer on the frontier. She had served 15 years in space. She had seen conflicts before, but never like this. Never a war over whether someone should be allowed to see. "Captain, we have 3 cruisers approaching," her weapons officer reported. "They are powering weapons." Wu gripped her command chair. She had families on the transport ships behind her, civilians, people just trying to live their lives. Shield up, weapons to defensive positions only. Do not fire unless fired upon. The ships opened communication channels. A priest's voice came through, translated by computer. "Human vessels, you carry sight corrupted to new, turn them over to temple authority or be destroyed." Wu glanced at her passenger manifest. 23 refugees. They wore visors. They wanted to see. They were running from religious persecution. "Negative," Wu replied. "These are asylum seekers under human protection. We will not surrender them." "Then you choose war," the priest said. Energy beams cut through the darkness of space. One watched the battle reports from Nu. His hands shook. More ships, more fighting, more death, all because he built a visor. "Turn it off," he told her. "I cannot watch anymore." But it did not turn it off. She was recording everything on her personal device, broadcasting it to her people, showing them what was happening. "They need to see this," she said. "The faithful need to know what their priests are doing. The questioners need to know what they are fighting for." "What are they fighting for?" one asked bitterly. "People are dying, ships are exploding, for what? So some can see and others can stay blind." "For the right to choose," said, but even she did not sound certain anymore. Du arrived with news. "The human military wants you, both of you." One stood up quickly. "Why?" "They want to weaponize the visor technology, use it against soldiers, force the visors onto them during combat. The shock of sudden sight would disorient them, make them easier to defeat." "No," one said immediately. "Absolutely not." "They said you would say that. They are coming to take you anyway. You will help them or be charged with treason." Du looked grim. "I came to warn you. You have maybe an hour." "Where can we go?" asked. "There is someone who wants to meet you," Du said. "A leader named Hal. She is trying to find a peaceful solution. She has been working in secret with Ambassador. If you come with me now, maybe we can stop this before it gets worse." "It is already worse," one said, but he grabbed his equipment anyway. They left through underground tunnels, avoiding military checkpoints. Du led them to a hidden landing pad where an unmarked ship waited. Inside, they found Hal. She was older than with silver markings on her blue skin. She wore no visor. Her eyes were clouded with blindness like all, but her bearing was strong and confident. "So you are the human who started a war," Hal said. Her translator gave her voice a weary tone. "I did not mean to," one said. "Intentions do not matter, only outcomes." Hal turned to her. "And you are the traitor who rejected her faith." "I rejected lies," replied, "not faith. To many of our people they are the same thing," Hal sighed. "But I am not here to judge, I am here to stop the killing. Ambassador and I have been planning peace talks. Will you help us?" Hal one asked. "By making a compromise. We create protocols, rules for who can get the visors and when, cultural counseling, protection for traditional ways. Neither side wins completely, but neither side loses everything. I shook her head. The priests will never agree. They want the visors destroyed, all of them. Some priests, yes, but not all. The council is divided. If we can show there is a path forward, some will listen. Hal paused. Unless you both prefer war. Neither of them answered. I thought not, Hal said. Then come, we have work to do. But before the peace talks could begin, tragedy struck. A human extremist group called the Site Liberators decided to take action. They believed they were oppressing their own people. They believed only humans could save the blind aliens from themselves. They launched an attack on a temple world. The orbital bombardment lasted 3 minutes. It destroyed a manufacturing facility where traditional guidance devices were made, but it also destroyed a nearby pilgrimage site. Thousands of faithful were there, praying, celebrating their traditions. Most of them died instantly. The news hit both sides like a physical blow. Humans were horrified. Even those who supported the visors condemned the attack, but the damage was done. Religious militants responded within hours. They targeted a human medical ship called the Hope, claiming everyone aboard was spreading site corruption. They were wrong. The ship carried doctors treating a plague outbreak. No visors, no technology for sight, just medicine. The militants destroyed it anyway. 300 humans died. One watched the casualty numbers climb. His face was blank. No tears, no words, just empty shock. I sat beside him. She held his hand. This is not your fault, she whispered. Then whose fault is it? One asked. I built the first visor. Everything that came after started with me. No, everything that came after started with people choosing violence over discussion, with extremists on both sides deciding that their way was the only way. You gave me sight. You did not tell anyone to kill for it. But one could not hear her. He stood up and walked away from the group. He found an empty room and sat in the darkness. Hours later, someone else found him there. An older man with graying hair and sad eyes. One, the man said quietly. One looked up, Father. Dong had not spoken to his son in 5 years. Not since one left the family business to become an engineer. But he was here now. I heard what happened, Dong said. I came to find you. Why? Because you need to hear a story. Dong sat down beside his son. When I was in the military, I participated in first contact missions. We found primitive species on distant worlds. We thought we were helping them. We brought medicine for their diseases, technology for their problems, knowledge for their ignorance. One said nothing. On one world, we found a people who lived in trees. They had their own culture, their own traditions, but they had a high infant mortality rate, so we gave them medical technology, taught them about bacteria and viruses. Within a generation, their population exploded. Their forests could not support so many. They cut down the trees, destroyed their own habitat, started wars over the remaining resources. Dong's voice cracked. We destroyed them by saving them. Why are you telling me this? One asked. Because I see myself in you. I see the same certainty that we know better, the same belief that our way is the right way, and I see the same horror when we realize what we have done. Dong put his hand on his son's shoulder. I left the military because I could not live with that guilt, but running did not help. I had to learn that help without wisdom is just another form of harm. So I should not have helped. I do not know, maybe you should have. Maybe you should not have, but you should have understood the weight of what you were doing. Dong stood up. You can still make this right, not by running, not by pretending it did not happen, but by helping to build something better from the ruins. He left one alone again. Outside, the war continued. Fleets clashed near the progressive forces, supported by some human ships, fought against the temple fleets. On the planet below, civil war raged. Families turned against each other. Those who wanted sight fought those who wanted to preserve tradition. The galaxy watched in horror as a civilization tore itself apart. Ambassador and Hal worked desperately to organize peace talks, but extremists on both sides sabotaged every attempt. Each attack led to retaliation. Each retaliation led to more violence. Captain Wu's ship was heavily damaged in a battle defending a refugee convoy. As her crew evacuated, she sent one final message. "Tell them this war has no winners, only losers. Tell them to stop." Nobody listened. One finally emerged from his isolation. He found her watching the news. Tears ran down her face as she saw images of her burning. "I thought seeing would make everything better," she said. "But maybe the elder was right. Maybe some things are not meant to change." "No," one said. He knelt beside her. "You were right. Your people deserved the choice, but we both made mistakes. We thought giving that choice would be enough. We did not prepare for what would come after." "Can we fix it?" "I do not know, but we have to try." Together they contacted Hal and Ambassador. "We are ready to talk," one said. "Really talk, not about winning or losing, about finding a path forward." "It might be too late," warned. "Both sides are too angry now." "Then we make them listen," said. "Because if we do not, there will be nothing left to fight over." The peace talks were scheduled for a neutral station. Both sides agreed to a temporary ceasefire, but everyone knew it was fragile. One wrong word could shatter everything. One prepared his statement. A prepared hers. They both knew this might be their only chance to stop the war they had inadvertently started. The future of two civilizations rested on what happened next. The peace talks took place on a station called Haven Point. It floated in neutral space, far from any. The station was old and from previous conflicts. Now it would host one more attempt at peace. One stood in a waiting room adjusting his collar nervously. Through the window he could see the gathering crowd, representatives from both sides, journalists, military observers, everyone watching to see if this would work. Entered the room. She wore her visor, but she carried a second item. The broken pieces of her old guidance device, the one that shattered the day she met one. "Why did you bring that?" he asked. "To remember," she said simply. "To remember what I was before, what my people were before." Wu appeared at the door. She had come despite their argument. "It is time," she said, then softer, "Good luck." The conference hall was massive. One side held human delegates, including Ambassador. The other side held representatives, split between the religious conservatives led by and the progressive reformers following Hal. In the middle sat Du and a human woman named Bin, a philosopher specializing in cultural ethics. They would mediate the discussions. One and a walk to the center of the room. Every eye watched them. Cameras broadcast their images across the galaxy. Du spoke first. "We gather here because a human gave an alien the ability to see. That single act sparked a conflict that has claimed millions of lives and fractured an entire civilization. Today, we must decide what comes next." Ambassador stood. "The human side acknowledges errors in judgment. We moved too quickly to celebrate this technology without considering its cultural impact. But we cannot simply pretend it does not exist. The Visor technology is real. Citizens have already used it. That cannot be undone." Rose from the side. Even without sight, her presence commanded attention. "The eternal listeners created us in a specific form. To alter that form is to reject divine wisdom. This human corrupted one of our faithful and encouraged others to follow. The visors must be destroyed, all of them, and those who use them must seek redemption." "Redemption for what?" A's voice cut through the room. She had not been scheduled to speak yet, but she spoke anyway. "Redemption for wanting to see my mother's face, for wanting to know what colors look like, for asking questions about our own nature." "For abandoning your faith," replied coldly. "I did not abandon faith, I abandoned lies," stepped forward. "My entire life I was told our blindness was sacred, that the eternal listeners wanted us this way. But that was not true. We had a mutation, an accident of genetics, not divine design. The mutation was the listener's will, insisted. Or maybe the listeners gave us both possibilities, I said. Maybe they gave us blindness to teach us one way of living, and maybe they left us the ability to see so we could choose another way. Why is that not also sacred? The room fell silent, even had no immediate response. Hal stood. I have studied our ancient texts. Nowhere do the listeners command us to remain blind. They taught us to listen, to feel, to experience the universe through sound and touch. But they never forbade other senses. We interpreted our natural state as divine command. Perhaps that interpretation was wrong. Heresy, one of the conservative priests muttered. Or evolution, Hal countered. Our faith must be strong enough to survive questions. If it is not, then perhaps it was never truly faith at all. One took a deep breath. I need to say something. His voice shook slightly. I created the Visor because I saw someone struggling and thought I could help. I did not consider the consequences. I did not understand what I was changing. People have died because of my actions. Civilizations have been torn apart, and I cannot take that back. He paused, gathering his courage. I was wrong to assume my way was better. I was wrong to think technology alone could solve problems, and I was wrong to believe that helping one person was worth any cost. He looked directly at. I apologized to the people, not for giving a sight, but for not respecting the weight of what I was doing. Studied him with her clouded eyes. An apology does not resurrect the dead. No, one agreed. Nothing can do that, but maybe we can prevent more death. Ben, the philosopher, spoke for the first time. The question before us is not whether the Visor is good or evil. Technology is never that simple. The question is, how do we move forward? Can we find a path that respects both tradition and change, both faith and choice? There is no such path, a conservative priest said. Either we preserve our way or we lose it. That is fear talking, Hal replied. Fear that our culture is so fragile it cannot survive adaptation. I have more faith in our people than that. Ambassador cleared his throat. If I may suggest a framework, we have studied conflicts like this in human history. When cultures collide, the answer is never simple preservation or simple change. It is synthesis, creating something new that honors what came before while embracing what is possible. He projected a document onto the screens around the room. These are the accords, a proposal built by Hal, myself, Dew, and Ben. It includes provisions for voluntary access to Visor technology with extensive counseling, protection of traditional practices and spaces, reparations from human governments, and joint oversight of all sensory technologies. The delegates read through the document. Arguing started immediately. Some said it went too far. Others said it did not go far enough. The debate lasted hours. During a break, one found himself alone with Elder the priest who had first declared a heretic. The elder approached him slowly. Do you know what you have taken from us? Asked quietly. I think I am beginning to understand, one replied. Our blindness was not just a physical state, it was an identity. It was the foundation of how we understood ourselves and our place in the universe. You did not just give us sight, you destroyed our certainty. A's voice was sad rather than angry. We will never be the same people we were. I am sorry, one said. Are you, or are you sorry that your help caused suffering but not sorry that you helped? A tilted his head. There is a difference. One thought about that. Both, I think. I am sorry for the pain, but I cannot be sorry that I got to see her mother's face. That other got to make a choice. At least you are honest. A started to walk away, then stopped. Perhaps that is the best we can hope for, honesty about the costs of our choices. The talks resumed. More debates, more arguments, but slowly, gradually something shifted. The extremists on both sides were outnumbered by those who were simply tired of war, tired of death, tired of anger. After 3 days of negotiations, the accords were finalized. Key provisions included: Visor technology would be available to any who wanted it, but only after completing a mandatory counseling program. The counseling would explain both the benefits and costs of sight, including how it would change their relationship with traditional culture. Traditional spaces, including temples and historical sites, would be protected. No visors allowed inside, preserving these areas for those who chose blindness. Educational systems would teach both traditional ways and new possibilities, allowing young people to understand their full heritage before making choices. Human governments would provide reparations to communities damaged in the war. A joint committee of humans and would oversee all future development of sensory technologies, ensuring cultural sensitivity. Both sides would participate in a truth and reconciliation process, documenting atrocities and seeking accountability for war crimes. It was not perfect. Many on both sides remained unhappy, but enough delegates voted in favor. The accords passed. The war was over. 10 years later, one stood at a memorial on New. It listed the names of everyone who died in what became known as the HFY War. Millions of names, too many to read in a lifetime. A stood beside him. She wore her visor sometimes now, but not always. She had learned to appreciate both ways of experiencing the world. "Do you think it was worth it?" she asked. It was a question they had asked each other many times over the years. The answer was always complicated. "I do not know," one admitted. "Some days I think yes. I see young choosing sight and experiencing things their ancestors never knew. I see art that combines your traditional sound sculptures with visual light. I see progress and synthesis and hope. And other days I remember the casualty numbers, the families broken, the culture fractured, and I wonder if one person's freedom is worth so much suffering." I took his hand. "I wonder that too, but then I remember something. Change always has costs. Staying the same also has costs. My people lived for thousands of years never knowing they could see. How many of them dreamed of it? How many touched their children's faces and wished they could see them? That was a cost too, just a quieter one." A young girl walked past them. She wore a visor but carried a traditional sound staff, a tool blind used to navigate through echolocation. She used both, switching between them naturally. "That is the real answer," I said, watching the girl. "Not whether it was worth it, but what we build with what we learned." One smiled slightly. "You have become wise." "I had good teachers, one who taught me to see, others who taught me that seeing is not enough. You must also understand." They stood in silence for a while, honoring the dead. Then they walked back to the research center they now ran together. It was called the Bridge Institute. Half the staff was human, half. Some wore visors, some did not. They worked on technologies to help people, but also on understanding the cultural impact of those technologies. Wu was there when they arrived. She managed the ethics review board now. "We have an application from a species called she said. "They want help developing a translation device for their complex language, but their language is tied to their religious practices. Sound familiar?" One and exchanged glances. "Bring in the cultural consultants first," one said, "and the philosophers. We talk before we build." "You have learned," Wu said with approval. That evening, one stood on his balcony watching the sunset. A joined him, removing her visor to experience the fading day through sound and feeling instead. "Do you ever regret it?" one asked, "learning to see?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "Sight can be overwhelming. Sometimes I miss the simplicity of sound and touch. But then I look at a sunset like this one, and I remember why I made the choice." "What about your faith, the eternal listeners?" "I still believe in them, but differently now. I think they gave us blindness as a gift, but I also think they gave us the potential for sight as another gift. Both are sacred. The choice between them is what makes us truly alive." One nodded slowly. I spent years thinking I was giving you sight, but really you were teaching me how to see consequences, to see complexity, to see that being right is not the same as being wise. We taught each other, I said. She put her visor back on and looked at him. And we will keep teaching each other. That is what peace looks like. Not an ending, but a continuous conversation. Somewhere across the galaxy, a young put on a visor for the first time and gasped at the beauty of stars. Somewhere else, an old priest taught students the ancient art of sound sculpture in a temple that had stood for 10,000 years. Both were valid. Both were sacred. Both were part of what the people had become. The war had been terrible. The cost had been immense. But from the ashes, something new had grown. Not just visors or technology, but understanding. The knowledge that progress and tradition are not enemies, that change and preservation can coexist, that the right to choose includes the right to choose differently than others. One looked at the memorial one last time before going inside. All those names, all those lives, he would never forget them. He would never stop questioning whether his choices had been right. But he would also never stop trying to do better, to help without harming, to innovate with wisdom, to see not just what is possible but what is right. That was the real gift I had given him, not gratitude for sight, but the vision to see beyond simple answers. And perhaps that was worth everything after all.